Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome back. This is another FPC Roundtable, another Stanley Cup Final edition, and we are here just about an hour or so ahead of Game 2, hour and a half, depending on when they drop the puck. And the Canadians are down 1-0, and we're going to talk and figure out maybe how they come back. Maybe they don't come back. Who knows? Maybe neither team wins the series, as I hoped, if you watched and paid attention to the first game. But as you can see, it's, of course, me, Ian Glendon. I am joined by Mr. Chris Wazell and down on the bottom screen there, Mr. Mike Craddy. Fellas, how are we doing here tonight?
Good evening. Hey, can somebody send some ice cubes?
It's a little hot
I,
up
I,
in the
I,
Northeast. Huh?
I kid, of course. I mean, look, it could be a heck of a lot worse, to be honest. So, much worse.
Hey, I live down in Florida, so this heat, that's what I do. That's what I do. It's always hot and humid here, and feeling like your skin's gonna fall off. And I just go home to my nice central aired room, and I feel nice and cool. So, Mike, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Just kind of sitting here waiting for the game to start at this point in the day. But yeah, it's a big important one. So it kind of puts the nail in the coffin. I think if Montreal loses tonight, before it actually happens. But yeah, if they lose tonight, they're in trouble.
Now, if you paid attention to episode 1 of this little bit of programming here prior to the Stanley Cup just the other night, I almost choked my way through my prediction because I ultimately predicted the Canadians were going to win the Stanley Cup, and I honestly I'm getting sick in my mouth just saying that yet again. And I just want to clarify, this isn't a situation, and I've seen this, and Mike, you can attest to this. There's a certain segment of Bruins fans that have somehow convinced themselves that the rivalry really isn't a big deal anymore. They haven't really been a rival in years, and they're like, "Oh, we can root for the Canadians." No, I'm not rooting for the Canadians. This kills me inside to pick them, but I'm trying to be objective. And yeah, so I fell into the side of picking the Canadians to win the cup, and I don't know what's worse, if I'm right or I'm wrong. Because if I'm right, it means the Canadians win the Stanley Cup, and well, there you go. As a Bruins fan, that's difficult. But if I'm wrong, that means I picked the Canadians to win the Stanley Cup, and I was wrong about it. And I will always have to live with that. And I don't know. I'm pretty much in a lose-lose situation. But this isn't about me. This isn't a therapy session for me. We're here to talk about Game 2 because, like Mike said, this is a pretty big game for the Canadians. Now, no one is sitting here saying, and certainly not for this Canadians team, no one's sitting here saying that going down 1-0 is that's it. It's over for them. We know, Chris and I, we talked about this the other day. They're a resilient bunch. So losing Game 1, yeah, that's not ideal. But they were in this situation just a series ago against Vegas, and well, they're still playing, and Vegas isn't. So what do you guys think? Real quick, heading into this second game, how do you feel about Montreal's chances to rebound? And I'll start with you, Chris.
Look, their chances aren't as bad as people think if they do. And I saw Ben Kerr last word on sports this afternoon, kind of get into a little brouhaha with Joe Smith from the Lightning Media Corps, and I had a good laugh because it is kind of true. Montreal just needs to get down and dirty with this. I mean, look, this is the way they played. This is how it goes. Embrace the hate and roll with this. Make it as ugly as possible. Make it as inhumanely unbearable for Tampa to have any sort of space whatsoever. But the most important thing that Tampa cannot be allowed to do in Game 2 is what they did in Game 1. They were able to skate in with a full head of steam almost every rush. Montreal cannot sit back. They cannot. They have to engage these forwards, because if they don't, we're going to see the same exact thing like we did in Game 1.
Were you shocked? And I don't think any of us were surprised that they lost Game 1. But were you shocked that they came out as flat as they did in this game?
I was. This was definitely one of those games where it was bookended, where the first period they came out absolutely flat. The second period was a little bit better, obviously, and then the third period, for whatever reason, that third Tampa Bay goal, that was it.
Mhm.
That was it. It was over. You knew it was over. Once Nikita Kucherov danced around and did what Nikita Kucherov does. Whether you look at some of the other hijinks that Kucherov has done in the past, i.e., 2018 Devils series.
Never gonna let that go, are you?
No, I'm not going to. He should have been suspended for at least the rest of the series for I don't know how many instances of headhunting you can get away with, but hey, you give him credit. But this is the thing. Montreal let Point skate in. Let Point set up the play. I said it to I said it to Timmy Rosenthal. I was like, here comes a goal. Sure enough, 2 seconds later, boom, it's in the net. You knew it was coming. You cannot let Braden Point work like that in your own zone. And it's bad enough the guy within 5 feet is one of the best players not named Joe Pavelski in the NHL. But the fact that he has enough speed and acceleration to get through the zone and make Montreal backpedal in fear is more sobering. Montreal cannot do that tonight. They just can't.
I'm glad you mentioned Point and Kucherov, because 3 of them, or 2 of them, I kind of jumped ahead there a little bit as about what I was about to talk about. Both had 3 points last night, and both of them are on 6-game point streaks. Now, we already know Braden Point had a pretty decent goal-scoring streak earlier in this playoffs. He only had the second longest streak in NHL history with 9 games. But the 2 of them are sitting at 6 apiece, and that's getting them into some pretty interesting territory. I'm gonna start. There's several players tied with 7, and I went through this when I was looking at the goal scoring streak, and it was the same thing every time. I'm like, oh, there's Mario Lemieux. There's Mario Lemieux. There's Mario Lemieux. Mario Lemieux has a 7-point streak. You have Yari Curry with 12, Joe Mullen with 11, and Wayne Gretzky with 16. Some pretty notable names on this list, and some other guys like Paul Coffey, Al McKinnon, Steve Yzerman, Sergei Fedorov. Just run-of-the-mill NHL players. No, in all seriousness, the 2 of these guys are obviously a big reason as to why this Tampa team is what they are, and to be able to simultaneously be on a streak like this. Now, 6 games is nothing to laugh at. It is what it is, but you can see it right there. I mean, there's not a lot of players that have done that. And let me clarify. Most consecutive Stanley Cup Final games. So again, this isn't just playoff games, because you're thinking, okay, well, Braden Point had 9, so that doesn't. No, okay. It's Stanley Cup Final games, and you can just see the impact that they have on the biggest moments. So, Mike, I sort of the same question. Were you shocked that the Habs were kind of came out flat-footed, and where do you see them moving forward in the series? Do you think it's over for them already, or do you kind of figure, okay, yeah, losing game 1's not a huge deal? You kind of expected it in Tampa.
I'm not fully ready to call it over yet, but it just kind of felt early on, for whatever reason, kind of just like a gut feeling thing more so than anything else, that they just weren't winning game 1. It just they've never played Tampa all year to begin with. And you can make the case that Tampa's better than Vegas. They never played a team this good, because there's no one in the North Division this good as Tampa. And yeah, you're just going into that hostile building. It's not like the most like loud building out there. It's not like super crazy like Vegas or Nashville or anything like that. But yeah, I think they just got a bit shell shocked. Kind of just a feeling out process for a lot of this game, playing a team so good as Tampa and that they're unfamiliar with this season in particular.
Real quick, do you think it's really the first time that Montreal has, now correct me if I'm wrong, really played in front of a significant crowd? I know a lot of teams kind of started playing to bigger crowds towards the end of the season, but obviously with the restrictions up in Canada, I know in Montreal it was a little bit different. Obviously, do you think that kind of derailed them a little bit coming into Tampa, where it was essentially a packed house where no one cares about the pandemic, and you just kind of do what you do and pretend like it's 2019.
It's probably just like a minor factor. I bet, like kind of something they kind of brushed off and kind of got used to as it went on. I think tonight for them, it's like a cliche type of thing in these types of games, especially when you're on the road for Montreal in this case, is scoring early because you can take Tampa out a little bit early on, at least for some portion of the game, and try to get a stranglehold on it. Because if Tampa scores first, they're going to win again. And it got to a point where it got so extensive for Tampa Bay in terms of how much they were dominating that John Cooper just decided to put 5 forwards out there, 4-1 comfortably late in the third period, and just kind of score like an FU goal. Like, hey, I'm going to put up 5 forwards and just dominate you on the power play late. John Cooper knows, I think, pretty well after one game what he needs to do to beat Montreal. Nothing's guaranteed, but I think he got a pretty good blueprint of how to beat Montreal. And if Tampa wins tonight, I'm putting the lock on it. I'm putting the L word down that they win the series, maybe in 4 games. I just don't know, even at the Bell Center, if Montreal can win the next 2. I think the series goes max 6, but I think if Tampa wins tonight, they sweep them probably.
What did you think of Carey Price in Game 1?
He was good, but I mean, I think it just pales in comparison to, he didn't get enough help. It's not like he was fully exonerated of the blame, but I think Carey Price's performance kind of gets overshadowed when you let up 5 goals, no matter how how much of the blame goes on you there. But I mean, I don't think Carey Price was like the worst player on the ice or anything crazy. I think he can still keep them in games, and he's going to have to if they want a prayer in winning this series. But yeah, I think Price was like all right, but I mean, when you let up 5 goals, it's not the most ideal way to end a game. So,
well, Chris, I'll ask you, what do you think was the Canadiens' biggest? If you could pinpoint precisely one player, one group of players, one line, one defense, offense, what is it that was the thorn in the side of the Canadiens in Game 1? Because I know obviously the passive type play that you highlighted earlier in this show obviously cannot continue. But what else, or is there anything else that in your mind is the key factor as to why this team did not win Game 1?
I mean, look, John Cooper was able to take Braden Point and match him up with Nick Suzuki and be like, basically, okay, good luck. Try and stop him. And I don't expect a 21-year-old forward to stop Braden Point, let alone especially when Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov are together. That's almost unfair to ask. I wouldn't even ask Philip Deneau to stop 100% Nikita Kucherov, or even 90% Nikita Kucherov, without a serious amount of help. And it seemed like in Game 1, Montreal did not provide that help. There was no support in the middle. Basically, if Tampa wanted to just skate across the middle of the ice, they could. They pretty much controlled any transition that Montreal had. And look, they, from start to finish, pretty much dictated how that game was going to go. And unlike Vegas, who used a speed forecheck in their Game 1, what may be more scary for Montreal to face the reality of is Tampa Bay just stopped, started, and did whatever the heck they wanted to against Montreal. It wasn't one forward type of thrust. It wasn't even a group of lines. It was, here's our best players. Montreal, come and stop us. And they couldn't. And for like we said earlier in the show, for further insult, John Cooper said, all right, a 4-1, you've ticked me off enough. I want to show you that my power play is like the Death Star, and I'm going to shove it down your throat. Here's 5 forwards. Try to stop that. And really, they had no chance. I mean, you watch that power play with 5 forwards, and I just cringed. You knew what was going to come. Again, Montreal lets 2 players go right down the middle of the ice, crossing each other, and it's like what's going to happen. And there's the goal. You can't let a team just get in that position. And I don't care what identity you have and how many penalty kills you have in a row. It's not going to work the same against every team.
Well,
And
we talked about the Habs' defensive strength as being one of their advantages and how they got to this point. You know, how did they get there? Obviously, Carey Price has been fantastic. Their scoring has been up. You know, Cole Caulfield coming into the lineup late in the season was certainly a jolt for them. But it was defensive structure. It was the ability to, you know, really frustrate their opponents. And like you said,
yeah,
that was non-existent in game one. All of a sudden, it was just there was no flashes of that, and that's a problem. And that's where you can kind of see this series could potentially really just go out of control. And Mike, you mentioned potentially being a sweep. Now we're not talking that yet. We'll see how this game goes, but it certainly was not inspiring if you're a Canadiens fan.
Yeah.
However, as a franchise, they have been in this position before. They've actually been in this position 10 times in the past, and in 5 of those instances, they have come back and won this series. So the Stanley Cup Final series. So there is some history where, you know, this isn't really that big of a deal. However, if you look at this year in a vacuum, as we probably should when we're trying to figure out who's going to win this series, Montreal's already been at a disadvantage. And I can look back and probably think that, yeah, many of those 10 prior instances where they lost game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final, I think that they were a far better team, if not the better team in the series. So this is definitely not a direct comparison, but it's obviously something for Canadiens fans. If you want to hold on to something, you can, because, you know, being down 1-0 isn't the end of the world. If they go down 2-0, though, regardless of going back to the Bell Center, I think they're in big trouble. And if they go down 2-0 playing like they did in game 1, I think you can start planning the parade down here in Tampa, because there's not a chance in the world that the Canadiens, you know, this might be a Red Wings or Colorado, Florida Panthers Stanley Cup Final circa 1996, where it's just all right, let's just, you know, win these 4 games and get the heck home. So biggest factor for the Canadiens in game 2. I mean, who has to score the goal? Who has to be the X factor outside of Carey Price? Carey Price has to be great. We know that. But who has to be the difference maker between the goal pipes or between the nets?
Carey Price.
Well, outside of Carey Price. That's the easy answer. Outside of Carey Price. I mean, between. I know the wording of that was kind of confusing, but you know what I mean.
It's gotta be the Toffoli line.
Yeah,
it really does have to be Toffoli, Caulfield, and Suzuki. They had one chance in game 1 that you took notice and said, "Oh, wait a minute, whoa, wait, Tampa got caught a little flat-footed there," and then nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of the bigger piece to take away from that game was Tampa Bay played Montreal style better than Montreal played its own style for 3 rounds.
That's a problem.
And we said it. Jim and I kind of debated it back and forth with Andy Graziano last week. I was like, think about this for a second. Tampa Bay is like a chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
They can legitimately play any style to beat you. They can sit there and they can play ugly as sin. They can sit there and make it look pretty.
Mm-hmm.
They can beat you to a pulp and then score 3 goals in like about 5 minutes. That's how Tampa plays. They are that team that I don't want to say it because, well, you can't really call them it yet. You don't want to ever use the D word unless it's really warranted.
Mm-hmm.
But they are probably the closest thing that we have right now in the NHL to a potential dynasty.
Well, and you know, you got glimpses of that with Chicago, and
yep.
If you want to call them a modern NHL dynasty, then yeah, I can go with that. 3 cups in 5-6 years. You know, that's, you have to adjust the definition of dynasty in the NHL, because the NHL has
different now.
Yeah, it's a little bit different now. There aren't teams that are going to be like the Islanders or the Oilers who who win 4 cups in a row, or the Canadians. Let's not even get into all that. But a modern dynasty, yes. I mean, they're very clearly the best team in the league. And long are the days that we sit there and say they got swept by the Blue Jackets. Oh, they got swept. President's Trophy swept. That was a good few months. I'll tell you that much. It was fun. It was exciting. Can no longer say that anymore. This team has clearly used that as a catalyst for this run. And look, we're talking like this series is over. And look, all we have to do is look at the last 3 Stanley Cup Final series, and the potential winner all lost game 1. Tampa lost last year. Some team lost and whatever in 2018. And obviously Washington lost in 2018. So this series is very clearly not over. But as we've said before, Montreal was already at a disadvantage coming into the series. Playing from behind, not only in games, but in the actual series is not going to be good for them. So, Mike, just so you have it on record, or we have it on record here on video, who did you pick to win the series and in how many games?
Lightning in 6. That was kind of generous, even though, I felt like there is a chance this series could go 7 if it got really wacky. But Lightning in 6 is like the worst case scenario. I don't see this series getting past 6. And if any team is going to win it in 6, it'll be the Lightning. I don't think the Canadians would be able to pull it off that soon. But I'm leaning more like gut level prediction, like 4 or 5. Like I could see this ending in 4, probably not. But I think the Canadians steal 1 game. Mm-hmm. But I went with 2 with my initial prediction. So Lightning in 6. But if it's over sooner, I'm not even going to be so remotely surprised.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder how I can scrub last episode from the internet to avoid any sort of remembrance of me picking the Canadians to win this series. If it happens to go that route where they get swept or lose in a gentleman's sweep, as they say, maybe lose 3-0 and win a game and then whatever. I actually went to one of those gentleman win sweep games back in the day. Mike, actually, Chris, you'll remember this too. 2003 or 2004, one of the two. Devils, Bruins. Devils were clearly the better team. They were up 3-0. I went to game 4. The Bruins actually won that game, and then they got knocked out like 2 nights later. It was a tough go around, but that was back in the somewhat dynastic, almost dynastic Devils run there.
That was actually 95.
No, this was later. This was Joe Thornton.
Oh, the Thornton. Yeah. Well, there was the Thornton one, but in 95 they kind of almost did sort of the same thing.
Little that good then.
Yeah, that was a much worse one. Only because look, Devils went into Boston when game 1 5-0. I remember this laughing hysterically because I'm like, Devils were, look, to be fair, we're 5 seed in that series, and I'm like, it's going to be a tougher series than I think. And before I could blink, we're all sitting up there in a watch on reservation, watching the game on a projector screen, and I'm like, it's 2-0 already. What, Boston? Before we even got it set up, and they're like, oh heck no, Claude scored. Claude's like driving freaking everybody nuts. It's 2-0 already. It's like, turn it on. It's like 3-0. We're like, okay, it's over. That's it. And I said it to somebody at that time. I was like, we're going to Stanley Cup Final. Well, they looked at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, this team is pissed. I was like, you could see it as soon as they came out. It was a completely like there's turning on the switch, and then there's turning on the switch, and that's kind of what Tampa did in Game 7 against the Islanders. The scary part for me is this. And I really should have went back on that Tampa Bay in 7 prediction. What was I thinking? I can't now. That's how it works. Is this? Can you stop Tampa Bay when they turn on a switch like that? And the answer is probably, as currently constructed, no. And oh, by the way, just for added venom and vinegar and all that fun stuff, guess who did not win the Vezina Trophy this year? Don't think that Andrei Vasilevsky is going to come in tonight a little little bit pissed off.
Yeah, I would.
Now I'm not going to argue the merits one way or the other, but he is going to be rather motivated tonight, to say the least.
Well, I mean, look, it's very clear who's been the best goalie in the playoffs over the last several years, at least the last couple of years, and it's Andrei Vasilevsky. So by virtue of that, and in addition to having really good regular season, he's the best goalie in the league. Vezina award winning trophy goaltender aside, he's played the best. And I mean, again, he's 3 games away from winning another Stanley Cup, something that's only happened one other time. And I mean, back-to-back winners in about 25 years since the Red Wings went back-to-back in the late 90s. And of course, I almost said the Steelers, the Penguins just a few years back. But other than that, you know how difficult it is to go back-to-back in this league. So, instinct, who wins this game? I'll start with you, Chris, and I'll ask you, Mike, and I want you to give me the X factor in this game. Who's going to make the difference for the team that wins? So, Chris, I'll start with you. Who wins game 2?
It's going to be the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the X factor is that it's that third line again. They're the ones that got it started in game 1 on Monday night. Blake Coleman is probably still getting hits as we speak. They're probably counting it right now. It's like 1, 2. He had 11. He had 11 hits. Barclay Good. Look, the end of the game against the Islanders, and I remember this. Barclay Goodrow against 4 Islanders, and he's able to keep the puck for like 20 seconds. That alone, and then you combine that with Yanni Gourde, who can play anywhere up and down that Tampa Bay lineup. That is a line that Montreal just does not have an answer for. And it's not so much from a scoring standpoint, but from a controlling pace and play standpoint. And that's what really helps set up Tampa.
They don't need to put the puck. They don't need to put the puck in the net necessarily. They just need to control the pace of play. Keep the puck away from Montreal. Don't give them any extra advantages. So I'm right there with you. Plus, like I said, if you get to game 6 or game 7 against Tampa Bay, guaranteed Yanni Gourde's going to score. I don't care how many goals he doesn't have to that point. If it's game 7, he's going to end up putting the puck in the net. It's going to be the difference maker too, because that's just how it works. Mike, who wins game 2? Is this going to be the first hammer on the nail for the Canadians? Or second, really?
Yeah, they're not winning tonight. If they win a game in this series, which I think they'll win 1 max at this point, like I said, going against my original Lightning in 6 prediction, it'll be at home in games 3 or 4, one of those. I think the X factor is Vasilevsky, because I think the Canadians, I'm expecting a game where they do come out fast. And if they can bury, I think it'll be a greasy goal, more likely, because, Tampa's not that easy to, dipsy daddle around and, make some moves and score a pretty one. So I think Vasilevsky is going to have to be sharp early. And if he's sharp early and if Tampa gets the first goal, like you can just pack it in if you're the Canadians, because I really don't think they're coming back on Tampa. They've gotten to this point where Tampa's so close to repeating, they're not going to let it slip away. If they have an early lead, they're not going to let it slip away. They're just too talented. They've proven it. And now this is, you can make the case this is the worst team they've played in the playoffs so far. And they're not gonna screw it up, and I think they're gonna win tonight. And like I said, if Montreal wins any games this series, I think it'll be 3 or 4, maybe both. That would be pretty wild if they could really capitalize there. But I think Tampa's got it tonight. They have the fans into it. They have the blueprint. Cooper does, with how they pretty thoroughly dominated the Canadians in game 1. But yeah, for me tonight, it's Vasilevsky, and if it's on the Canadian side, I think it's Caulfield, to be honest. More recently, as time goes on, he's been an X factor. He scored some big goals, especially in Game 6. That goal on Lehner after the whole predictability thing they were talking about indirectly in the media, whether it's the 5-hole or top corner, and then Caulfield picks the one that works of the 2, process of elimination, and it's the top corner, and he could be the guy that could honestly get them that first goal because he's just so fast and so quick. It's funny, there was one shift I was texting with some friends who I text with during every Bruins game and just any game we're watching, like Caulfield's pretty funny to watch sometimes because he's just like it's partially because he's smaller, but he doesn't seem to lose energy. It seems like he could play like a 2-minute shift if he really wanted to sometimes with how quick he is and how consistent that motor is. But yeah, if it's Tampa, it's Vasilevsky because I think Montreal is going to come out fast, and whether they execute or not is up to them, of course, and partially up to Vasilevsky. But if I'm going Canadians, I think it's Caulfield. It's some big moments, and this kid is putting together quite the season for himself with the World Juniors and another good season at Wisconsin, that NHL contract, and I mean, the kid wants a cup to cap it all off. So if he wants his team to get any prayer of it, he's going to have to continue to be that X factor that he's been so far.
So I agree with about 70% of what you say. And by agree, I mean I don't disagree with the other things you said. I'm just going, I think that, like you said, the Canadians, I think, are going to come out really fast tonight. Down 1-0, desperate. I think they're going to come out a lot quicker than the Lightning because it's just how nature is. That's how sports work. The Lightning, maybe they don't have as much. I don't want to say motivation. Of course, they're all motivated. That's a silly cliche, but they're not going to come out with as quick of a step. So I think there's an opportunity for Montreal to take advantage of that, and I think they do in this game. But on a side note, I don't think this is ultimately going to change anything about the series. Like, I know I just picked Montreal a couple days ago, but I've already almost completely reversed course. I do think they win this game, though, and I think it's mainly Tampa kind of getting in their own way. Like, I kind of think this is going to be one of those. Tampa came out. They were heavily favored in game one. They were expected to win game one. They're expected to win the series. They came out. They did exactly what everyone expected them to do. So what's going to happen in game two? Well, they're going to come out a little flat. And you're going to go up against a team that's very desperate in Montreal. A guy like Cole Caulfield, who was going to be my X factor. So I was like checking around, making sure he didn't steal my notes. Cole Caulfield and Suzuki, those guys, they're going to kind of jump on the Lightning early, and you're going to have Carey Price hold you in for the rest of the game. Now, here's the thing. Here's the double-edged sword part of all this. It's going to wake Tampa up. It's just going to be kind of like a smack to the face for Tampa and be like, oh, wait, what are we doing? No, we still have to win a few more games. And then I think they probably win the next 3. So tonight, Montreal wins. Probably going to be Montreal's kind of in a lose-lose situation because, like I said, if they lose this game going down 2-0, it's going to be hard for them to come back. I feel like the way they're going to win this game is going to be great for this game, but it's going to kind of kick the Lightning in their rear end because of like a little lull after a pretty big win game one. So I got the Canadians. Those two got the Lightning winning, and we'll just have to come back here in a couple days and discuss who is right and who is wrong. So, folks, I know puck drops probably in just about an hour, so definitely relax, enjoy the game. Give us a follow on Twitter if you haven't already. It's right there up on the screen, Full Press NHL. But in fact, obviously, you're probably watching this on our Twitter account, so I would hope you'd be following us at that point. And, of course, join us in a couple days for Game 3. We're going to react to Game 3 and, of course, take a look at that game coming up. And hopefully, for the sake of competition and for the sake of making this NHL season last just a little bit longer, the series will be tied 1-1, and we can continue talking about potentially 7 games this series. If not, we will be closing up shop early, as they say, because if they lose game 2, I think we're talking 5 games most. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Once again, give us a follow on Twitter at Full Press NHL. Check out our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/fullpressnhl. And, of course, go to this website, fullpresshockey.com. And once again, thank you, everyone, and we will talk to you soon.